Let's see.
Yeah,
oh, yeah, we live. All right.
See, the whole world is watching us
Got the
face technical
executive
difficulties.
producer in the background.
Hey, everybody.
What's happening? Yo, so it's been a minute since us three have been together as the BREADren to do the BREADren podcast. So literally trying to like corral chickens and cats in the same box. You know what I'm saying? It's just real quick. I'm like, hey, let's get on. Let's have a real good conversation. We're about 30 minutes. It's 9:33 right now. Let's check the time. DJ be our time checker. We're gonna try to make it 30 minutes of a solid conversation in true BREADren, 45 minutes in true BREADren style, giving people some value. We're gonna empower them, we're gonna engage them, we're gonna give them some executable actions to make things better for themselves. So neither one of my brethren, Destrian Wells of Destrian Wells Consulting or Dr. Ajamu Loving, PhD, CFP, KFC is a place that you can get
the other day
from. Neither one of them know why I have called them here today to talk, so they have no idea what the topic is. Unlike regular brethren, where we at least agree on a topic and we know where we're gonna go, they don't know. Actually, I don't know, but I'm about to say it now. I want to talk about the best ways to navigate this pandemic, how to plan in this pandemic, because obviously we've literally gone a full year. If we're being serious with ourselves, we've gone a full 12 months in a pandemic, because January we had our first cases according to the CDC. We knew about it in December. So we've gone a full year. We're in December now of this pandemic, and obviously it's not over. It's going to continue over into 2021. So for people who are maybe behind the ball a little bit and have not actually put plans into place, we have you two with your expertise in finance, specifically Dr. Loving with his PhD in personal financial planning, the first Black person to do it in the world. Don't dispute us. But I just wanted to come and have a conversation surrounded around that topic of planning in this pandemic, because as we know, because we always talk about work-life balance, and right now that's really, really tough for people, because a lot of people are living in the actualities of what people, everybody kind of has, I want a job where I work from home. And now they got it, and it's not what they thought it was, because other pressures of life are now piled on top of that dream of, oh, you're working remote now, but it's not what you thought it would be, because it's not under the normal circumstances. So let's start there. Mm-hmm. How have you all personally, and we'll start with Doc, how have you all personally adjusted and planned accordingly to working in this pandemic? And what is the advice that you have for other people, especially you two, with the corporate background? Doc, you're a professor. You also do corporate work on the side. So, specifically in that area, how have you planned and moved accordingly? And how has your plan blown up in your face? And be truthful. Go ahead.
There you go. That's the real deal. I think that in terms of plan, I feel like I'd be lying if I said that I had planned for this, or you know what I mean, specifically. Certainly, no, man. I didn't expect an epidemic to keep us in the house where we couldn't really go out and travel and do the things we had been doing. But because of the type of work that I do, the adjustment has been far easier for me, and I think for a lot of people who work in the sort of human capital space. And what I mean by that is you're not physically manipulating anything for your job. Your job and where you bring value is all about information that you have, being able to communicate, being able to use technology. And so for people who work in that type of space, it hasn't been nearly as much of, I shouldn't say an adjustment, because we're doing things far differently. But in terms of the negative side of things, in terms of lost money, I haven't experienced that, right? In terms of lost opportunities, haven't experienced that. What I have experienced is decreased expenses associated with doing business, in terms of the cost of travel, the cost of all of the things that I would typically do in order to make money. Now I'm not experiencing that. And so what you actually have people talking about this K situation where there are certain groups of individuals who are on the top part of the K in terms of recovery. They're coming up because things, it's not affecting them in the same way because they can do their job more easily remotely. And then you have other people who need the physical patronage of clients and customers. They need to be able to physically do something with people around, the crowds around, and those people are suffering tremendously, right? And so the difficult thing is that we're not all experiencing the pandemic the same way. And so I would have to be careful about saying, okay, well, we can all plan the same way. The only thing that I can say that we need to do and make sure that we do and recognize is that our time can come too, right? And so while things are decent for us, this is the time for us to be stashing money. This is the time interest rates are low, so if we have to finance any things that we're looking at in terms of business expansion, it's not a bad time to be able to do that and secure funds, but recognizing that, hey, the other shoe can fall. And, at some point, I don't know how it will fall, but there's always going to be something, right? After this, there will be a thing. There could be something that just affects the financial sector. And then I get decimated and everybody else is fine. And so you never know exactly where you're going to stand when times get tough. And that's why it's important to start making provision, putting away money while you can, right? Recognizing that you want to have that 3 to 6 months of liquid funds there and available if something should happen. And then beyond that, really start putting it into place, your financial independence plans. And so what I mean about that is long-term investments, things in the stock market that tend to give you a higher return over a longer period of time. Put all of those plans into place. If you are still thinking that the government is going to rescue households that are in financial trouble, I don't know why you are, right? If this whole deal with Congress and in the last sort of, hey, what's going to happen with this stimulus? I think you can see politicians are far more comfortable playing politics than they are to seeing to the needs of the American households. That's either on either side, right? And so it's your job to see to the needs of your own household and recognize that might not be there. It might not be coming. It probably won't be coming from the governmental side. And so you have to be able to take care of yourself. And we as households and the people need to be able to take care of ourselves and our loved ones and the other people who might be around us and suffering while we're still in a decent situation. So that's all I have on that so far. But I love to hear what BREADren has to say because he looks ready. DJ, it's weird. I can see y'all now. Normally we don't get to see each other's reactions.
Right.
So.
Right, yeah. DJ, your point, and I'm gonna step away real quick and go grab the kiddo out the car. So
okay,
you got the floor.
All right, I'll make sure I can talk until you get back. If
That's
not,
never a problem.
I'll pitch it back to Doc. So handle your business. Tell my God baby I said what's up. So the first thing I will say is that during this time, like AJ said, we all haven't been able to really come together as much as we would have liked to because we've had to adjust our focus. But for those that are listening under the sound of my voice, my prayer is that you and your families are doing reasonably well or as well as can be expected with all the things that are going on. So as Doc mentioned, he and I work in a very similar industry. And so my day-to-day, the only disturbance I've really had is the fact that my travel has been suspended. From a standpoint of a quality of life, it's actually giving me more time to watch my son grow and be here to kind of tag my wife out from some of the day-to-day duties that were going on in our household. In terms of preparation, I got to be honest, we probably were sick earlier in the year and didn't know it, probably around the January time frame. And When February hit, I haven't been to my office since February 24th or what have you. And I was at an event where there were some congressional leaders and they all tested positive. And, proper protocol at that point was to self-quarantine. And fortunately, I was okay, but we immediately went into a shutdown. So I haven't physically been in my office for almost the duration of a year. But I would probably say that if the leaders of my company had to weigh in, this has probably been my most productive year, simply because I had the flexibility to not be on a plane 60% of the time. I was able to, my commute consisted of me walking from my upstairs to my downstairs. And you and I, Doc, we've been able to do all the things that we were doing. But with that being said, my sensitivity is to the folks who can't do that and who have not been fortunate enough to do that. And to your point, I think that this is a great example of the fact that we have to participate in our own financial rescue of our communities, because you cannot depend on the government to do it for you. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be prepared to do it tomorrow. But I think that the hurt and the agony that hopefully most families have endured and are getting to the other side of is indicative of something that will stick with them in terms of actually developing a plan. Yeah. So what have we done? We've made some adjustments because, quite frankly, again, we didn't have a plan. What we did was we said, hey, look, our son is going to be home for probably 4 to 5 months. All daycare, all of that was shut down. That threw a big wrench in our plan because childcare is an essential part of our life, but we both were privileged enough to be able to work from home, and we had to give that due diligence and that space to essential workers to be able to get out and move freely and do the things they needed to do without being endangered by additional households or consequently endangering others. And so I think this is that people are more important than things element that we always find a way to get to, because as a society, we need to choose each other over, whatever materialistic thing it is that we're chasing. And for me, it was a big reset. So my plan became, how do I recession proof my family, the ecosystem around me? And so there are some things that we started doing. AJ and I embarked on the journey. I mean, you came along as well. We started looking at more entrepreneurial type of things that would create more streams of income for us. Now, we've tried to share some of that information with people, and we think it's a great opportunity. But listen, everything is not for everyone, but you have to start having conversations about how you diversify yourself, because relying on your employer in perpetuity, it's just not going to be the way that you're going to be able to protect yourself or your family. I think further along the lines of what you talked about, Doc, just in terms of where we are in terms of the society, you talked about interest rates, you talked about the government. Unfortunately, everyone was not able to participate in that. When you think about that K curve, that's still the top 1 to 10% of earners in the country. And we're getting right back to many of the things that we talked about in the past relative to the racial wealth gap. And again, if this doesn't bring this home, I don't know what is. Healthcare and wealth are concretely tied together, whether we like it or not. And African-American people have disproportionately been affected by this pandemic, both from an economic standpoint and a physical and a health standpoint. And I think it's time that we take a look at some of the activities that we're doing. I started getting out running every day and just fresh air, making sure I was doing something. I'll tell you what, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me doing those things. And I think it's multifaceted. Number one, most folks that look like us are on the front lines and they are essential workers. So they don't have the latitude to be at home to go and do those things where some of our constituents do. One of the biggest things about combating this is your immune system and exercising. So if you have to work every day and compromise your immune system every single day, you're obviously at a higher risk. But when you think about the communities that impacts, it is vastly different than those communities that are staying at home. And so when you look at that racial wealth gap that Dr. Loving really intensely talks about, that's something that we really need to think about. Not to mention, during this time away, there's been so much social distress in the world that has happened and that's occurred. And, I think that emotional trauma is also a huge factor of what's impacting our communities as well, because I've had people in my organization call me and check on me and just say, hey, I want to make sure you're all right. Not because we don't think the workload is an issue, but because we see the things that's happening in society, and it's a reflection of what could happen to you when you leave your home tomorrow. So we've started a racial equity task force at my organization that I've been fortunate enough to participate in. So look, there have been a lot of things that have happened, and I don't think that this has affected everyone in the same way, but in a variety of ways. I think there are unique stories across the board where hopefully there's a testimony at the end of this, and not a ton of sad cases, because there are so many that I've seen and I've heard. So my steadfast hope, wish, and prayer is that we can come out of this thing better than we came in it. And I think, again, that starts with you got to have a plan. What's your economic plan? What's your plan for your physical and emotional well-being? And then, quite frankly, listen, regardless of your politics, I support the right to bear arms, and you better be prepared to protect yourself and your family if things get worse, because we may see things get worse before it actually gets better.
Yeah, I hope you're wrong about that. But as soon as you said you were running outside, first thing that popped into my head was Ahmaud Arbery.
Yeah,
it's one of those deals where the way in which we experience trauma and terror in this country makes it so that you could, we don't get to experience the American freedom life, or whatever it is that everybody is always talking about, in the same way as everyone else. We live in a great neighborhood. My wife doesn't like me to work outside or to run through the neighborhood, just because she's scared that someone who's either moved in and new might see me, or the police who don't necessarily know me might ride up on me or whatever. So there's the terror that my wife experiences thinking about me working out outside. So I do everything in the house, right? And I think to your point, you have to prioritize yourself physically. So I do Insanity. That's my workout. I love it. I enjoy it. It's crazy, but it keeps me sweating and breathing hard. And I think you have to give yourself something that is going to physically challenge you and see to your physical health, right? You also likewise need to see to your financial health by making sure that to whatever extent that you can save during this time, that you're starting to save and put yourself in a better position. And for those of us who are healthy, making sure that we have proper life insurance in place, so that if something happens to us financially, our families can either be either experience some recompense, or for some people it can be a potential windfall. But not taking care of our needs in terms of life insurance is something that, as you can see, or you should be able to see, we can't afford to not handle that, right? Because there isn't going to be some function to step in for us or on our behalf to handle it for us. It's just not how it works. And so I think the level of seriousness when it comes to just having doing business correctly within our household has got to increase. And I think I perceive that it has among a lot of people. When I talk to them now, they're just like, look, man, I need to know what I need to do. right? I need to make sure that we're squared away if something should happen to me or something should happen to my wife or kids or elderly family members, just things that that a lot of times you might not have thought about because stuff was just going okay. And you're like, all right, well, we're making it, right? And I think a lot of times if you're making it, then you might not spend a bunch of time thinking about, okay, well, how are things, what's going to happen if things have a downturn, or what do I need to do in the future to ensure that things can go well going forward? You just, hey, man, I'm happy to be making it, especially when people aren't. And that is one of those things you want to be real careful about that.
No, so to your point around that, I think that this kind of sped the clock up probably by 15 to 20 years on most people, because part of the conversation in my household was, excuse me, part of the conversation in my household was, do you, as my wife, understand the business aspect that we have as a family? And if I haven't done a good job of articulating that or bringing you in on that, I absolutely need to do that at this point, because it's too late to have you scrambling and figuring things out if something should happen. Further, it forced me to have a more specific and defined conversation with my mother about, what would be your wishes. And this is not a conversation I want to have, but also, are we prepared for that? And if not, let's do that, but let's do that together, so it's not like it's some endeavor that I'm sending you off on to prepare for. And it has nothing to do with me or my sister per se, but she has grandchildren, and do you want to do something for them? I haven't had those conversations, and those conversations were important. And so, I think she appreciated it. Go ahead.
Real quick, because I don't mean to cut you off, because basically what you did is you fleshed out you and Doc, between the two of you. This is why I love doing this with y'all, because I just throw something out there and both of y'all just go in it and just, y'all just take it up and run with it. I love it. It's like, I fumbled the ball on purpose. But you bring up the point exactly what I mean, because when I say planning in this pandemic, nobody could have planned that this happened.
No.
You could have been cautious, aware, and vigilant at the beginning, when the news and the things came out and said, hey, there's something going on over here. Now there's something going on in China. There's something going on in Italy. It's probably going to come to the United States. Let's stock up on some provisions, not toilet paper, not bread, not milk. Let's, like Doc said, let's get some things into place. If you were vigilant and aware, let's say, but you're in the thick of it now. And oftentimes in a pandemic, there is panic and chaos, which we see. It's happened. It's still happening, because now that numbers are going up, what do we see is gone again? Toilet tissue is gone again. Why? Nobody will ever be able to explain it. Same reason why in Florida, when they have a hurricane, all the milk and the bread is gone. Those are two of the things that go bad the quickest in your house. Why would you get that if your power is going to go out? Makes no sense. Nobody can explain it. It's just, I don't know if it's Americans or just humans, but I think it's just American.
When you're in a storm, French toast makes you feel better. That's why all the milk and eggs and bread, you got to make French toast.
Day one, though.
I don't know.
Day one,
rice pudding.
You got to do nothing but make sandwiches and eat cereal so you can feel comfortable and safe.
Well, your generator is going.
There you go.
And that's a conversation for the wealth gap, because you probably
everybody don't have it. Right.
Yeah,
right.
And even if you can afford one, how much can your small cheap generator compare to your, the guy that's got the mansion with the hotel industrial generator? He running the whole house. He out there playing video games, got the hot tub running off the generator. Meanwhile, you struggling to keep one lamp and the refrigerator on so that the baby's milk don't go bad. All right.
No, these are facts.
This is why in my opinion, financial planning is more important for people who are on the margins or potentially in danger than it is for people who are wealthy.
They can't afford make mistakes. They can't afford
exactly.
Losses.
You got luxury problems when you have a bunch of money. When you're already wealthy, right? You're dealing with different choices, and obviously, you always want the best opportunity, but nobody's going to starve. Nobody's going to be outdoors. You're not having to wait for some moratorium on evictions and all of that to make sure you're okay. But there are a lot of people who are suffering in that space right now. And I'm be honest with you, I don't 100% know what resources to point those people to, because we've done such a horrible job in terms of preserving the safety nets within this country. I don't know what gives us this mentality that people and their families and their households don't matter, and as long as the market appears to be doing well, we'll use that as a proxy for the economy instead of looking at the actual households and families and what people are going through. I'm invested in the market. I love to see all of the prices go up over time. It's a wonderful feeling. But, people are more important than things. And I just can't sit by, watch folks suffer and wait and feel comfortable in that. And so I have no idea how Congress, Democrat, Republican, or otherwise, can sit here and go back and forth about these large numbers in terms of how much we want to give or not give, and decide to do nothing until they feel, till they arrive on a number that's great. While there's people out there that, if the local municipalities lift the moratorium on evictions, they'll be outdoors, right?
Which most of them actually have, and the sad part about it is the moratoriums only lasted until right around now. And as we see, numbers are going up, and they don't really have plans of extending it. At this point, it's the question of, if you haven't planned anything,
what do you do
during this whole time? Because that's basically the question, because there could have been a lot of optimism at the beginning. I'll admit, on my behalf, there was a lot of optimism. I was like, you know what, things are going to go right, and I'm in New York, so for the most part, New York State got it right. This whole, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, they worked together and kind of got it right. You got the curve down significantly. Things returned to this new weird kind of normal. Restaurants were able to open back up for a short period of time with social distancing and things of that nature. No large sporting events or anything like that came back, but there was a small sense of normalcy that came back for a short period of time. And then fall is here now, and we're back to square one. So it was easy, in a sense, to fall into this sense of, okay, things, even if the government doesn't save me, we'll be out of this in time for me not to completely drown, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And this is only speaking in terms of the people who had just enough to keep the water right here. The water's the water's above their nose, so they can't really breathe, but they can still, they eyes above water. So they ain't drowning just yet. And then there's the people who are completely drowning. But the people who could see a little bit above water are like, all right, now I got to really put a plan in place, because there is no end in sight to this. Scratch all of the vaccine talks, and we ain't even going to get on that, because I'm from Tuskegee, Alabama. Hell no. All right. So there is no real optimism in place anymore. There is none. You can call optimism thinking that Joe Biden is going to be able to come in and stop a pandemic. Fantasy talk. It's a pandemic. This is biological. This ain't some, war that can be just fixed with money. That's the other thing. Like, there at this point, because it's going on so long, there's an amount of money that still it can't fix it. They threw out trillions in the wrong direction, and it still didn't help. It didn't help anybody. All it did was create a large V in terms of, stocks and equity for people with money. That's why the wealth gap got even larger during a pandemic. So people now that are like, okay, wake up. I got to do some kind of planning. Where do I start? Do I need to get into stocks? Are stocks the right thing right now? Because the market's crazy. But the thing, and this is the other thing that I want to point to you, because both of you all, talk to people who own businesses, and we all do. We're all business consultants, and with personal and professionals, and we have seen an increase in small businesses. Now, we've also seen the decrease in small business. We know there are a lot of brick and mortar small businesses, specifically ones owned by Black and brown people, who have not weathered the storm of this pandemic. And also, depending on your line of work, you have not been able to weather this because your constituents, your base of customers can no longer afford your services. So where do I plan? What do I do now? And of course, it has a lot to do with cash flow. PPP loans and things of that nature came out, may have tided you over for a little bit, because remember, at the time that most of these businesses were able to get the money and were actually given the money, they had already been 3 months deep.
Right.
So they're playing catch up with the little bit of money that they're allotted, which is nowhere near enough, because you got to show and prove how much you need and all of that. And then they're going to, give you an amount, and you're already in the hole. Yeah. You still got to cover all of your overhead and still try to be a good business person with integrity and keep your your employees' heads above water.
Yeah.
And the best thing that you can do at a certain point for most people is, hey, go to unemployment. And unemployment, now you in the hole. So it's like, okay, everybody's working from this negative in a sense. How do I plan? Because one thing that we've learned with trading is, I lose $50. I think all I got to do is get $50 back. No. Once I lose 50, I got to get 100 back, because I'm in the hole, because I was supposed to gain 50, but now I lost 50. So I need that 50 plus 50 I was supposed to get. I need 100%.
So let me speak to that a little bit for you. So I think this is where, as a business, like if I'm strictly talking as a business, and I do not want to be insensitive to the personal aspect of it, but you made a couple of key points. Number one, most small business owners have tried to hold on to taking care of their employees far longer than corporations have. And that's the loyalty piece that's there as well, because that's a relationship business. That's a relationship thing, right? They've tried to stay open for as long as they can when they could have shut down and kind of packed in some profit on the back end. Let me say this, though. I think that if I'm a business owner, I'm not going to speak about what should have been done, because you couldn't have predicted this. But I'm going to talk to you about what you maybe should think about doing. On a go-forward basis, you should try to put yourself out of business every 6 months. You should personally try to put yourself out of business. So revisit your business plan and make sure that you can pivot. What we saw was that for content creators, or people that had a social media presence or a presence in a content space, they were able to pivot far more than people who just relied on the fact that I have really good food and people come here and they've always come here. Once we got to this situation, it was about who's in front of folks the most to get them the most readily available information. And I saw a lot of viable businesses, 30-year businesses, even in my neighborhood, they struggled. No one knew if they were going to be open or not, because you would have to literally drive there to find out. And if, you couldn't get someone on the phone because everyone is trying to service someone outside or do something else, no one was prepared for that. So I think putting together business continuity plans that are able, because we haven't had a pandemic in God knows when. So this is not a part of a standard business continuity plan. So most people wouldn't have even thought about this. So on a go forward basis, this is now part of your plan. And if you're not including it, then you're making an upfront mistake. So thinking about this as an event or a scenario that can happen, you plan against it, or not necessarily against it. You plan for it. You plan to respond to it. You just alluded to trading. We talk about this all the time in our trading business, where we don't try to predict the market. We simply respond to it. I'm not partial to a buy or a sell. I'm only partial to a trend. And so I think businesses should take that model and adapt it. I'm not trying to look to downsize. I'm not trying to look to grow too much. What I'm trying to do is evaluate the research that says I should have probably been thinking about being more online 2 to 3 years ago. And I decided that my brand didn't require me to invest in that. So now you have to adapt. And so what I would say to successful businesses that are struggling, or businesses that were successful, it's time to pivot. Spend some of your capital on a strategist, a marketing strategist, Find you a content creator that's going to get your information in front of people, because it could literally save your business, because people don't know to patronize areas that they don't know are open or what the rules of engagement are. And that's been a huge thing, right? Over communication has been something, or oversaturation, I should say, has been a fear of most major businesses for a long time. This pandemic has proven that there's no shortage of a desire for information and content. So if you are a business owner, you need to play in traffic so you can get hit by as many cars as possible. Point blank, simple, right? So that's number one. Number two, as relates to structuring your business, a lot of businesses traditionally have not wanted to have lines of credit or have other capital. I'm not telling you that you have to go and highly lever your business because someone else told you to, but having access to that could have saved you and your employees. So properly structuring your business so that you have a line of credit that can carry you through a 6-month downturn like this. And if something crazy happens, maybe you tell your employees up front, hey, listen, we're going to hold on as long as we can, but why don't you go get the unemployment until it runs out? I'm going to then be able to carry you for another 5 to 6 months. Now you're giving a person a year to figure their life out. And I think, again, business, from a business continuity standpoint, these are just things that we hadn't been in a situation to think about, but this is how you get put out of business. So in terms of what your thinking looks like going forward, where's your chief of staff? Where's your operating officer who says, the last 6 months have been great, but if the following were to happen to us, we would be in danger of being out of business. And it could be extreme, but this is extreme. So now we have to start planning for extreme events because, quite frankly, listen, we're entering into a cold and flu season where we don't know what will happen. And so restaurants that recently opened 3 months ago are in jeopardy of closing for we don't know how long again. So if you haven't pivoted,
speaking of that, here in New York, we're already back on lockdown again.
Stage one.
I think restaurants have to close at like 9 p.m. now again.
No,
So
their
hours are
no
immediately
inside,
cut.
no inside guests.
Yeah, no inside, no. Well, I don't know. I think they might have cut the percentage back down to like 25% or something like that.
30%. Gotcha.
Plus, if you got outdoor dining, it doesn't matter now because we cold. So you're going to be very limited in what you can. And I think what you do is you bring up a good point.
Uber Eats. You got it. Now you got a partner. Right. Yeah, you got to
partner with all of them. Seamless, Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub.
Everyone.
They're you got to get with it.
Exactly.
But as a restaurant in particular, you definitely need to do your due diligence and check out the fees, but also see what is the accessibility for it. Like what is where are the majority of the restaurants in your area listed? Is most of your competition listed on both? If most of them listed on DoorDash or most of them listed on Grubhub, Uber Eats, where your constituents eating. I can tell you if you're in I won't say poorer, but if you're in a low income area, you're not going to make a lot of money with Uber Eats because they charge ridiculous amounts for delivery fees. Mm-hmm. So you need to be looking at a Seamless, a Grubhub, or a DoorDash, especially with the way that they run their deal with the Plus service where it's like $10 a month. But when you think about that, people don't have that expendable income no more. $10 a month at this point is a lot for people. $10 a month can go get me 3 packs of family pack chicken that can last my family for a week, maybe 2 weeks, versus me spending that $10 a month to afford to buy takeout food. I can't afford takeout anymore. So that's not even in the realm as the consumer. But as the business owner, you definitely got to open your avenues up to either attract more than what you normally attract or to maintain what you normally attract.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
I think the other thing
restaurant, most of these businesses weren't set up for this, like you said. So they had to go out and spend extra money to get dividers and PPE and all of this stuff. So in a deficit, they had to spend. So I think you bring up a good point, Destrian, where we always talk about personal emergency funds. Doc said 3 to 6 months. But how many businesses truly have an emergency fund for their business because they don't foresee their business having to stop? Normally in a business, I plan my stoppage. If I run a seasonal business, if I'm a lawn service, I know fall's coming. Let me let me shift some stuff around because I'm gonna be shut down when the winter comes. I may start doing something. I might start shoveling. I pivot. I move. Like you said, you got to be able to pivot. But I don't have in a plan a permanent involuntary stoppage of my business.
Yeah.
Most businesses don't.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we have that at this point now it's like you really have to plan for it.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I think it's really difficult. The cash flow in most cases is not there just to, especially in a short period of time, say, oh, okay, well, I can really just sock it away and then not work. It's just not practical. But what is practical? All right. So the banks are still there, right? The banks who a lot of times, especially for our minority businesses, we have a much too casual relationship with. Let me tell you what you're doing every week, right? You're taking deposits in, right? And you're using, in many cases, just the checking function, right? And they're having use of your funds, right? You're paying fees, and you haven't sat down and talked to a business banker about the other ways that they can help you, fund you, potentially insure you, the way that some of these other larger or non-Black companies will do. And so it's important for you to recognize that even though we are less banked than we ought to be as a people, as Black folks, we also underbank ourselves sometimes by not vigorously pursuing the relationships with these financial companies. They need to be able to offer you lines of credit, right? You need to be, when you sit down with them and you talk with them about what you're doing, whether it's expansion, especially during this time of low interest rates or whatever it is that you're doing, you need to be able to come to them with your concerns. And that financial institution, in most cases, has some financial products and relationships that they can use to help alleviate those deals if you come at those things ahead of time. And so it's important that if things are going well right now, this is the time to make sure you start deepening those relationships. If things are not going well, especially if you happen to miss out on that first round of PPE, you had a casual relationship with the bank, you didn't really have any of your financial statements together in the way that they needed them to be together for you to get the funding that you needed to go forward, but somehow you still made it. Those people are making money off of you. Right. Mm-hmm. And they'll make money off of the other products that you use with them too. But you need to be getting as much out of the relationship as you possibly can. And so, holding these cards close to your chest, and I don't want these folks knowing what I'm doing and all in my business, is like doing the same thing with the doctor. Right. You hiding that foot, that infection on your foot. You're going to mess around, lose that doggone foot. Now, like, ain't no time to be keeping secrets when you're in the doctor's office. You need to let them know what's going on. And these people that can financially help you need to be availing yourself for those resources now.
So, Doc, real quick, AJ, what he's saying is so important because this goes back to season 1, episode 1 of our inaugural podcast, Strategic Relationships and Partnerships. Oftentimes, we don't think that we need the help that we will ultimately need. That's just like insurance. It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Structure your business properly. Go and title your accounts. Go and make sure you're set up with a license, because so many businesses also could have been saved if they were set up properly to receive funds. So this is a real thing that, look, I'm volunteering myself. I know Doc is, you are here. We have to do a better job in terms of our community and making sure that, that relationship is not as fragile as it has been, to expose people to the benefit of it and the power of it, right? So it's not that this is to take any equity from you. You structure this the right way, it only creates more equity for you and gives you more bandwidth to do business. But what I wanted to do was this, because I know the time is going. We've talked a lot about a lot of the things that have happened throughout this pandemic, and certainly there have been a tremendous amount of unfavorable things. But if I could flip the script on you, AJ, and come to you, what things have happened for you during this time, and you, Doc, and I can close this section and turn it back to AJ. But what has happened that has been beneficial in your life that you can now take with you and take advantage of and propel yourself, your business, and your family forward? Because I'm a big believer, if you're not learning lessons, then you're losing. As long as you're learning a lesson, it's not necessarily a loss. So what do you have for me on that?
So, both of you all, Doc, I know Doc has joined us for happy hour once before. DJ, you hop on happy hour with us often. But we always do a shot. I always do a shot, and I always say that my prayer is that everybody comes out of this better than we went into it. And early on in the pandemic, it was apparent that there was going to be a lot of time for most people. But the thing that that most people got to keep in mind is time luxury, where for specifically us three, the pivot wasn't hard. We were able to continue to do virtually 100% of our jobs remotely. But for most people, they're essential. They can't do that. So the first thing that I had to do was take inventory of my time luxury and understand and put myself in places like, okay, I have extra time now. I'm not spending the usual hour of time that I spend in the car commuting to work, because it's a 30-minute, ride to and from my office. So that's an hour that I'm saving a day. Do I sleep that hour, or do I do something productive with that hour?
No, you meet me at 4 a.m.
Yeah, I meet you at 4. I'm getting up at 4 a.m. now to trade. But
Right.
and that is not that's not a taxing thing for me, because I don't have to wake up early in the morning, get myself dressed and ready, and go to my office. I roll over and I pick my laptop up and I check my emails. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I had to recognize my time luxury, and then also maximize it. We have this extra time that's been built into our days now, and it's what do we do with it now? Granted, there's way more Zoom calls, and that's just corporate trying to keep up your time. Let's be honest, we know it. We've been in the world for a while. Corporate wants to watch you. Productivity is big in their books. So what is Dr. Loving and DJ doing at the house on the clock? Let's keep them on conference calls throughout the day so that we can monitor them. So if you got that, you still, but your days are structured still, and you don't have your commute, so you got your time luxury. I had to recognize that, and it sounds cliche, but honestly, it helped really understand things that are important. I see my daughter every morning. I feed my daughter breakfast. We watch Sesame Street. I'm checking emails. So I've literally been able to watch my daughter grow up for a whole year. Most parents will never have that luxury of having a full year of watching their child grow daily.
Yeah.
So those are the positives that come from it. Also, just having the time to think and think outside the box, because we're business owners ourselves. Like, we're all business consultants. So I deal with a lot of small business and nonprofits. I'm dealing with some nonprofits now where they can't afford to pay me, but I don't want to see them fail. So yes, I'm doing work for them pro bono. Yes, I'm helping them for free. I'm giving my time for free, because I know eventually that will pay back. I believe in karma. I believe in good things come to those who do good. So that's why I'm doing it. But at the same time, my other business, my small business constituents, they cannot necessarily afford my services at the time. I had somebody who had to leave. It's not no fault of their own. It's the environment that we're in. Things are not normal. So I understand it. So I myself have to plan around. It's like, okay, what can I do to replace that? If that person can't pay me, how do I replace that? So it doesn't make sense in my mind to go find another business person, because everybody's probably going to be in a similar situation, right? If this person, their business can't sustain that bill right now, what's the likelihood that somebody else is going to be able to do it? Nah. So I got to think outside of that. I posted today about the eight streams of income. I noticed that I got 5 of the 8. So what do I need to do now? I need to increase some of those. And some of those are easier than others. Buy more stocks. It might not be the thing for you to do. I'm not going to, dump all my money into stocks, but maybe I increase my dividend paying stocks. Pro tip, AT&T has been paying high dividends for years.
My man.
If you got a little bit of money, buy you some AT&T, they'll pay you. And AT&T is, I want to say it's less than $50 a share,
Yeah.
But stocks may not be your thing. This is not financial advice. This is just pro tip from a man who's been doing a little something on the side. You know what I'm saying? So don't go put all your money, don't go put your PPE check in the AT&T and say, AJ said I was going to. No. Me and DJ and Doc, we started trading Forex. We make a little money on the side. That money's going to increase. I'm not telling you to go do that. Because look, let me tell you something. The first couple of weeks I got in there, hey, let me tell you something. The market will eat your lunch, and it ain't.
I was getting constant phone calls from you. Did this happen to you?
Let me tell you something. Y'all remember on Life what Buddy asked, did you want your cornbread? Yeah, the market don't ask you. The market come and get it off your plate and throws your plate up against the wall and say, go clean it up. All right. So look, but you gotta really just take some time. That's time luxury, but you got to find the time. Most people don't know this. And I'll put it out there right now. 24/8, 248 MMBB. Y'all know what that is. That's me. The 24/8 came from the idea in my mind that I came up cuckoo one night that I said there are 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week. Granted, everybody don't have, time luxury. But if you was to take 1 hour out of each one of those days and allocate it to one thing, now you've created a whole extra day in sense, because that's 7 hours, an 8-hour workday minus lunch, that's 7 hours of work. So if you take 1 hour every day and dedicate it to something, you've now essentially created an 8th day of the week for something that you are dedicated to. That's where 24/8 MMBB came from. So you take that same concept and you find out what you can pack into what time that you have available for you. If your job transitioned over and you were easily able to go virtual work, and now you know that you got an extra hour in the morning, find something productive to do within that hour. Whether it's personal or professional, whether it's money making or emotional, find it, because you're going to need it, especially in this time coming up. Everybody ain't got to be, on the money train right now. Like I gotta stack money. That might not be what you want to do right now. But what you do need to do is foster your relationship, like Doc said, and that can be personal and professional. Spend more time with your family. Set up an appointment and go talk to your banker. Business lines of credit, like DJ and Doc said. One thing that we do want to tell you, though, once you go get those business lines of credit, they're going to ask for paperwork. They're going to ask for credential statements and things of that nature. You can't just go get business credit and think you're about to go just swipe it up. No, don't end up on that side. Plan. That's the point of this is you can go do these things, but with these relationships that you foster, plan it. Talk to people, plan out your steps. Don't just wake up tomorrow, go to the bank, say, hey, I want a line of credit, get the line of credit, and now you got money, and then you just go do what you normally do when you got money. No, because this is not what you normally do when you got money. Right. We're in a totally different time period. So you got to adjust. But, wrap it up for me, throw it to Doc. But then, that's for me. There was the realizations of, just putting things into perspective. And it ain't perfect. It ain't perfect. At the beginning of the pandemic, you was thinking one way, and you got a little bit of optimism. Like I said, like, hey, we got 3 months of this thing. We'll be good. Whether, despite what's going on, hey, 3 months we good. We'll be back to normal. Might just have to wear these masks a little bit. And now numbers going up. You're like, okay, I need to plan again. Because I planned before, and I might only plan for 3 to 6 months. And now that 3 to 6 months is up. Now we at 9 months. And now I'm like, okay, well, I need to obviously extend that 3, extend that 6 to 9. Then I need to get, 6 to 9 more, maybe a whole nother year, all of 2021. Put yourself in the mindset right now that all of 2021 is going to be very, very, very similar to what you got going on right now, and plan accordingly. Go ahead, Doc.
No, I was going to say, I think, this is as much as we talk about the loss of financial and what can happen in that direction. I think for me, all what stands out above all else is just the loss of human life, man. The people who are no longer going to be with us. And I think right now we're just reeling, trying to react to everything. And we haven't really had the time to sit down and grieve And that time is going to come at some point, right? We have had a 250,000 people gone, man. Folks that we didn't get the chance to go to the funeral and do what we normally do and had a chicken afterwards, and you know what I mean, and hug and love on one another and talk about how we missed the person. We, trying to, and you can busy yourself by recognizing, oh, we have all this stuff in front of us to get done now. But at some point, it's going to hit us, that human loss, that irreplaceable loss, right? And there's no planning that you can do that's going to get you out of that. It's just something we're going to have to experience. And so for the people who are, for the people who don't, I'm getting to that, but for the people who are feeling and suffering, right? I want you to, number one, know you're not alone. And number two, recognize that right now, you can, at a lower price than ever, access mental health workers who will actually sit down and talk to you in the same sort of environment we're talking now. You can get counseling and you can get help. The feelings that you're feeling, that desperation, that desolation, that feeling of sadness, don't let that just take you down somewhere where you end up doing something that's self-destructive. Recognize that there's resources out here to help you above all else, right? There is that. Number two, in terms of life going forward, listen to Fauci Nim, not the politicians that are trying to get the votes and get, wants the Fauci Nim. Fauci and whoever Fauci be next to, Fauci Nim. That's it, okay? In terms of what you need to be doing, Fauci Nim and his 40, 50 years of infectious diseases and bringing us through HIV, listen to him and think of, a plan accordingly in terms of how you're going to keep your family physically safe, okay? So those things I think are more important than everything else, because even when the money's gone or there's problems, I've got family members who've lost homes and now have their own businesses and doing things and thriving, even in times where other folks are really having a difficult time, right? And so your time can come, but you have to be moving in that direction. You have to be willing to keep pushing forward. And I'm not saying you just soldier through. I'm saying that, sometimes you need to make yourself ready for, give yourself those resources that you need to talk to the people that you need to talk to, so that you can be okay. All right. This is not over yet. And I know that people are weary of the whole deal. And I think that's part of the problem. It's like, I'm tired of the mask. I'm tired of the house. I'm tired of not going to parties and clubs. And I'm tired of not eating at restaurants. And when will I get back to regular life? I understand that frustration. I feel that frustration. And every time that I start to think that I could allow that frustration to do something that might be outside of what Fauci and them would tell you to do, recognize the cost. Look at what happens when the numbers start to go back up and you start to hear stories via Facebook of people losing folks. And now, it's not just the higher population density areas. It's the areas, in Texas and Oklahoma and New Mexico and places where they don't have the same number of trained respiratory therapists and hospital staff and hospital resources in general. They can't afford to not listen to these things. And they've been told these things that are against their own scientific best interest by people for whatever reason. But we have to get past this because Black and Hispanic people are dying at a higher clip. The cost for us is higher than it is for other people who might ignore some of these scientific suggestions about what you need to do to stay alive. Take this seriously. I'm going to disagree with you, AJ, on the vaccine. I know our history as a people makes us so much less trusting of the medical establishment in general, with good reason, right? And so I totally get why a lot of people who are African American specifically are like, nah, I ain't taking it. I'm not going to be first in line, but I'm going to be in line. Okay,
Hey, Doc,
I'm going
look, Doc.
to.
All I'm gonna tell you is you need to get with me and DJ and change your last name to a W or a Z. Because hey, look, I'm getting to the very end of that line, and they cut. Look, like the old folks say.
I'm
When they
saying
call
what
your number,
what I don't want is
let me
for
tell you
us to
something.
be the only ones who are not immune, right? And we just continue to pass this amongst ourselves when we have a large a chance of having major maladies from it. So I don't want, I just, I don't want the same way I talked about our mistrust, because our mistrust of the banking system is rooted in very real things that have happened to us.
Yeah.
But continuing to live in that victimhood is hurting us now, and it'll hurt us more going forward. It's the same thing when it comes to the medical establishment. We can't allow what has been done to us and how we've been victimized in the past put us in a position where we continue to victimize ourselves going forward. We can't do that. We can't afford that. And so we're going to need to be very, very vigilant about our health, very vigilant about what it is that we're doing financially going forward. And that's why the BREADren are here, man, to try to help in that and give some direction. And we do need to do more, get some, we might have to get your buddy back to come and talk about what things you can do as working with the business bankers so that you can have yourself your business structured better and give more pointed advice going forward on those things. Maybe even a health expert coming in too. But we have to take care of ourselves and one another. And we have to remember that people are more important than things. And we'll be all right if we do that. Look what we've been through. Not through. We'll make it through this too.
We said we're gonna be all right.
We're gonna be all right.
All right, so gents, we are coming up on time that we said we was gonna be on here.
All right.
So I'm gonna pass it around to say closing remarks. What I want from your closing remarks, this is something we've never done. I'm going to tell you what I want from you specifically.
Okay.
I want 3 bullet points on what you want people to take away right now. This is your last chance to tell people something good. DJ, then Doc. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't know if I have 3, but I'll tell you the one.
Oh, you got 3. They start with an E.
Well, I'm not even going to do the empowerment, engagement, execute. They can find that. Okay, I see.
Oh, I didn't know you made masks. Okay,
I get down with that. But for real, like, so here's one thing. One of the first things I had to realize is that I had first class problems relative to what some of the people that I care about, frankly, that I love, or that I'm just associated with had. I had first class problems. And because I had to try to preserve the resources that I had for my family, there was minimal things that I could do for them. And that hurt me. And so the first thing I want to let people know is that you need to realize your privilege and where you sit in this whole thing. Just realize your privilege, regardless of the situation. So that's number 1 for me. Realize your privilege. Number 2, do something for somebody besides yourself. Like, pick a day. Do something for somebody besides yourself. Random acts of kindness in this environment literally will save some people's lives, right? So please take that serious. But number 3, and I'm not even going to say this is below or above anything else, I need you guys to take care of your mental health, because this is as much as this is a pandemic, this is a mental health crisis as well. It is not natural for us to be doing what it is we're doing right now. And so if you're feeling something, like Doc said, if you're feeling some type of way, don't think that that's unnatural or not normal. I think you need to actually embrace that and go to somebody that cares about you and talk to them and let them know you're feeling uneasy, you're feeling stressed, you have an increased level of anxiety. Whatever that looks like, you need to let it out. Find you an outlet, like a healthy one at that. Look, we always laugh and joke and say, we're going to go around the room and we're going to toast it up and have a drink. But I've seen Doc work out every day during this pandemic. I log 4 or 5 miles every day. And look, I'm not an avid runner, and
Hey,
I'm
wait,
not
wait,
gonna
wait,
be.
wait, wait. Hold on. You trying to call me out because I don't exercise or something? You know, I know,
Oh no, I was coming to you because you run
No, don't
behind.
worry about it. Don't worry about it. No, I'm doing 12 push-ups tonight. As soon as we get off this here call. 12
First of
push-ups.
all, first of all, if you were to turn your Samsung Health on, you follow Avery around for about a good 3 miles a day. I can promise you that.
No, hey, let me tell you something. Avery be in an invisible corral. She be in an invisible corral. Stay within these boundaries. But no, my
but
bad. Go ahead, finish.
no, you good, man. But it's those things, right? So, and the reason why I say those things because that's independent of any business situation. That's independent of how much money you make. These are things that every single person can do, right? So it's there's no discriminatory factor. There's no cutoff for that. Please do those things for your family and for yourself, especially if you're in a position of privilege. Like, recognize that that's important, man. Just understand your problems are different than others. And when you hear them, try to be there for a person because you don't know what they might need. Now, you asked me about the other three things. Find a way, like as it relates to my business owners, and we're going to specifically talk about that. The three pillars that I built my business, my life, my career, everything on is empowerment, engagement, and execution. Empowerment is about actionable ideas. You want to bring actionable intelligence to people to make decisions. Engagement is about the environment that you create for them to do it in. So they need to know that there's a culture and an environment in place for them to be comfortable enough to be vulnerable, share ideas, share with you specifically, and then allow you to help them cultivate those things. Execution is simple. How do we pull those first two things through to get you to the end result? And you need to surround yourself with people who are have more expertise in those areas than you do. So again, that's to me, that's how you protect yourself both personally and professionally. But again, for those of you who have lost loved ones during this time, from me and my family, my heart goes out to you. If you're currently struggling with COVID or any related disease, my heart goes out to you and my prayers are with you. And for those of us who have been unaffected by it, let's try to be diligent in the best ways we know how to protect those that are the most vulnerable amongst us. So with that, man, that concludes my comments, and I pass it back to you.
Most definitely. And I know Doc is going to have his 3 points, people over things. So good night, everybody.
It's a wrap.
No, go ahead, Doc.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, so to your point about people over things, it's still Giving Tuesday, right? And so there's it. No matter how well you're doing financially, I think all of us recognize that we've had some loss during this time, and there's nothing that I think makes me at least feel better than being able to give. The only thing better than that is actually doing it and giving, right? And seeing that somebody else can benefit from the place of surplus that you have. So recognize that if you are blessed, and I don't know what you believe in terms of religious beliefs, but in terms of just life in general, man, that energy that you put out comes back. Okay. And so put out that positive energy. If you're in a position where you can financially help an organization that's helping people or individuals directly, do that. I promise you'll feel so much better once you do it. And the nice thing about doing that is it's one of those contagious things that when you do it and you talk about it and you feel good about it, it makes other people want to do it, and you have even more impact in making the world a positive place. And I think right now, while times are tough, we need that more than ever. The importance of physically recognizing that your body matters and that you need to treat it with respect and love is something that I hope that we all are a little bit more in tune with, and more appreciative of the fact that, hey man, this whole thing can be fleeting. So take care of your body to even, you might not be able to do insanity, but I know if you have stairs in your house, walk up them bad boys and walk down a couple times. Do it, walk up and down the stairs for 10 minutes and see if you don't break a little sweat. and feel better after you did it, or 5 minutes or 2 minutes, or just walk up to the top and sit down if that's all you can do. But you'll feel better having done something and tried to push yourself a little bit physically. So, give. Obviously, make sure you take care of your body, and then recognize that this too shall pass. Just like everything else, time moves on, and it's going, eventually, this will be the vaccine. Despite how much we run from, eventually it's going to take hold, and this particular pandemic is not going to grip us in the way that it has. But how will it have changed you? How will you have responded to it? Hopefully, I know a pastor who says, the difficult times either make you bitter or they make you better. And so you get to decide which one you're going to be. You don't get to decide what the challenge is going to be. You don't get to decide what the storm is going to be, but you get to decide how you react to it and how you move on from it going forward. And I hope, and I'm optimistic, that you will be able to move forward more fully, more healthily, more financially prepared, more spiritually in tune, and recognizing the value of the relationships that you have with other people more fully, so that you can live a more full life. So that's all I have.
Most definitely, most definitely. Look, as usual, I appreciate y'all for letting me kidnap y'all digitally for a minute, to, just get some positive information out, which is what we normally do. We hadn't, even amongst us, we haven't, been in our normal groove of our thing. It's been a long time since us three have been together. I talk to DJ almost every day. Me and Doc, I randomly text Doc every now and again. But it's, just first off, thank you both for, allowing me a little bit of time. We got time luxury. So, I'm appreciative of what we were able to carve out real quick as far as that. But as far as my three things, I'll make it simple, because y'all, as y'all usually do, y'all are eloquent. Then, if this was the after show, y'all know what I say. Y'all eloquent. Y'all some eloquent. Yeah. So,
young man.
Fashion. True BREADren fashion. Grab your drinks. So I'm gonna induct everybody who watches this video now or in the future. If you watch this video, I'm gonna induct you into my happy hour family, and I'll tell you the same thing that I tell all of them, and I mean this, is that I pray that every single one of you that are under the sound of my voice come out of this better than we went into it. No, I'm not a preacher. I'm a prophet. Nah. But yeah, I pray that we all come out of this better. But three things take away is recognize your place in this. Acknowledge where you are in this. It's really summing up what DJ and Doc say. Like, if you are struggling right now, acknowledge that you're struggling. We always hear the first step to, to admitting is, what is the first step to the grief is denial. We're grieving right now. Like Doc said, we're grieving. Things are not normal. People have lost their jobs. People have lost their homes. People have lost loved ones. There's a lot of loss. And the caveat to it is it may seem overwhelming and it may seem not normal because of the circumstances that we're in. And we can't say whether it would be or not. We can't say if Corona wasn't here, would the same things happen to people the same way. We can't say that. So be truthful with yourself and acknowledge where you are in this pandemic. If you're doing fine, acknowledge that you're doing fine, and figure out how you can do better. If you're struggling, acknowledge that you're struggling and figure out how you can pull yourself out of your struggle. If you need help, admit that you need help, find the help. If you need money, admit that you need money, try to find it. And one of the underlying things of this conversation, I don't want it to be that we're talking about money, but based on where we live in the society we in, it's unavoidable. So we recognize that a lot of the loss and the negativity of where we are is financially related, and that's why we have the conversations we have so that we can make sure that people are more financially literate. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to be rich, but we do want people in a place of comfort if things should arise. You know, being comfortable in a place of, you know, we're in a pandemic. I'm not rich, but I'm not struggling right now. That's where we wish people were at, you know. So those are my three things. I don't even know if that was three. Who knows?
It sounds like
I'm
a
not.
good three.
It's good, man.
I'm not as eloquent as y'all. So, you know,
Sounds
I don't
like,
have.
but you didn't finish.
Look,
I went to Tuskegee with you. You're gonna finish that drink because I noticed.
Oh yeah. My bad.
I'm gonna need you to do
So
that.
yeah, here's to everybody coming out on the other side of this bed, and we went into it. We love each and every one of you all, and we, you know, we want the best for everybody. So if you need us as a resource, we are here for you. We mean it. So cheers.
Cheers, bros.
It's been great, gentlemen. Now y'all go use the rest of y'all time. DJ, I'll see you at 4 a.m. for the London session.
I'll see you at 4 o'clock, baby.
Appreciate you.
Salutations have been given.